Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Terry with College Football Stop. Bring you another show today. A little bit early on my show. Usually start about 10, but starting a little bit early because I got something I got to do here in a little bit. But I want to get into it, man. A lot's going on. There's honestly with it being kind of the dead period, I expected it to be slow, but I forgot the transfer portal was going to be crazy. Recruiting right now is crazy. There's a lot going on with the first National Signing Day coming up. So let's get into it. I do want to talk about the main topic of the day. Let me know in the chat and the comments. Did the College Football Playoff Selection Committee get it right when they picked the four teams with Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Alabama? Obviously, this is a kind of a controversial year because of Florida State, and I want to get into that and talk about it. And then I do want to get into some of the Ohio State players, basically like what players do I think are going to stay, what players will go to the NFL, guys that may play in the bowl game, and then kind of some guys that Ohio State are looking for in the portal, or at least positions they're looking for. So let's go ahead and get into it now. Where I want to start with Kyle McCord. So obviously Kyle McCord started for Ohio State the whole year. I mean, statistically put up a decent year, kind of a 5-star guy. I think that I think that teams will be interested in him in the portal. Right now, the one team that has been showing the most interest that apparently is supposed to meet with him today is Nebraska. Now, that would be interesting because I believe that Ohio State plays Nebraska next year. I'm going to look that up to make sure. Somebody that I know did say that, so it would be interesting if we had to play against Kyle McCord. And honestly, I feel like that's probably like a perfect fit. I like the coach they have out there in Nebraska because Matt Rule. Sorry, not because, but anyway, Matt Rule. He's a good football coach. I think that they had a pretty good defense this past year. And hey, if Nebraska is going to come back, maybe this is the type of quarterback that they need. Someone who does have talent, but kind of needs to be that guy. And I think that he would be if he went to Nebraska. I don't really think he would be getting challenged in terms of being the starter. He would walk in there as the man, as the best quarterback on the team. So that's interesting. There are some other spots that I see maybe good fits for Kyle McCord. You look at one of the rumors that came out was like Miami. Miami may be a good spot for him. Um, I, I don't know if he would want to be. I feel like you would get ridiculed if you play bad at Miami. So I think Kyle probably needs to go somewhere where he's not going to be hated by a bunch of people if he doesn't perform well, or if he has a bad game or loses the game, whatever. And that's just really all speculation too, because like honestly, none of us really know Kyle McCord. We really don't know what makes him tick, or but just kind of I think that Ohio State, he definitely was. People made it clear, including myself, that the way his play was not good enough, and that's just ultimately that led to him being in the portal, which it is what it is. Hopefully, Ohio State will have someone on roster, which I think they do. I think that Ohio State has a quarterback on roster that will start next year. A lot of people were talking about potentially bringing in a transfer portal quarterback, which, hey, I mean, if they do, cool. I don't know. Do you bring in a guy who will probably be a surefire starter? Do you bring in a guy who would like compete for the job? And then, I mean, because again, I just don't want them to promise anyone the job. I talked about it yesterday on my show. Don't promise anybody any job at Ohio State. Like, ultimately, you need to compete every single time that you're at practice. You need to be competing. Like, if someone is better than you, then they're just better than you, and they need to play. And I think that's been one of Ryan Day's biggest downfalls throughout his entire coaching or head coaching career at Ohio State, is that he is willing to, I guess, promise a position or play the older guy instead of just playing the guy who's better or who has a better upside. So we'll get into that more. Mark, what's up, bro? Thanks for coming, man. Like I said, if you guys are in here, the question of the day is going to be, I'm going to get to it in a minute. Did the College Football Playoff Selection Committee get it right with the four teams that they put in? But I do want to continue talking about some of the Ohio State guys that are in the portal. Um, a couple guys like actually officially went in. Nothing crazy really happened over the last day. There is one thing, Devin Brown. always been kind of known as like a fiery guy, someone who um, just has that passion, that fire. He made a tweet and it kind of sent Ohio State fans into a frenzy yesterday. And I'm going to show you guys the tweet here as we talk about it. So basically, the tweet from Devin Brown was a bunch of boats kind of in a harbor, and they're all on fire. And everyone was like, "Oh shit, what does this mean? Does this mean that Devin Brown's leaving? What's going on with this?" And ultimately, some people looked it up and figured out basically what it is it's like a Spanish conquest that happened a long time ago, like 1519 or something crazy. But anyway, the leader of the group, they were gonna go try to take over a place, kind of go to war, and what he said was burn the boats. And apparently they did burn the boats, which he was symbolizing to his people that we're here to stay, we're here to fight, and there's no turning back. And honestly, like that type of energy is just something that I feel like as an Ohio State quarterback, you really need to have. If you're not making the tweets and all that stuff, you still need to have that energy. And I think that we've seen that from Devin Brown. Like even if you look, if you go back and look at the Purdue game, Devin Brown scored a rushing touchdown, and he's out there pumping his fist. He's super hype, and I just think that we need that in our quarterback. I think that's leadership qualities, and I think that Devin Brown has them. And I think he also has the skill to be Ohio State's quarterback. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm sure that the battle is going to be open for the excuse me for bowl prep with Devin Brown and Lincoln Keenholz. And honestly, man, I'm not one of those guys who's like it has to be this one or the other one. A lot of people might think that, especially if you follow me on Twitter, because I post a lot about Devin Brown. But I just think that he's that good. I don't think that was a miss by Ryan Day. I think Devin Brown is just that good of a player. And I saw the flashes from him in the limited time that he got to play. He never really got to come in and like command the same offense for multiple drives in a row. Even when he did play multiple drives in a row, it would be like the first drive would be with the starters. The second drive, you're mixing in different guys. So it's not the same as getting in a rhythm with your team. And honestly, when you're up that big in a game, like when Devin Brown was coming in, Ryan Day is not calling the game the same way that he would call it for his starting offense. Let's just be real, he's not. But I saw the flashes from him, and I also saw that he was very raw. He was making mistakes, which is fine. I seen on Twitter yesterday a couple people were like, I don't know how people are sold that Devin Brown's the guy. And they posted like some his all of his plays, excuse me, from the Youngstown State game. And honestly, that was the first game that he got real reps. There was the Indiana game where he didn't really play at all. I mean, he got to throw the ball with like 20 seconds left in the game, and he was throwing to a wide receiver named Adolph, who was a walk-on. And, nothing, no disrespect to him, but that's not the same as throwing to even Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, and them guys. So I don't know, man. Like I said, I think that he's got the fire and the passion, and I'm ready just to get some word from the Woody about how that battle's playing out. Is Lincoln Keenholz challenging him? Because if Lincoln is challenging him, that just tells me that Lincoln has that mentality to him too. And if it does come down to being Lincoln Keenholz as the quarterback instead of Devin Brown, you're not going to hear a word from me complaining about that. Because I think that in this competition, I think that Ryan Day will truly pick the best quarterback. And listen, whether you believe it or not, I don't think that Ryan Day chose the best quarterback. I think that Ryan Day played favoritism, and Ryan Day probably ultimately ended up picking Kyle because of there was some things said that maybe Kyle's dad influenced that, and also because Kyle stuck around. Not many players are going to stick around till their junior year as a 5-star quarterback to start at Ohio State. Now, obviously, you have another guy in Devin Brown who did that, and I don't want Ryan Day to give him the job just because he did that. Like, if Lincoln Keenholz is better, give me the better quarterback. We need like this team has too much talent on it for you to be throwing years away, just being like, oh well, we want to keep our rotation of everybody who's a junior gets to start. You're wasting talent, like Marvin Harrison Jr. not getting to go to the freaking Big Ten championship. Like that shit, that has to stop now. We got guys like Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, and Dallin Hayden, all these guys on the team now. They deserve to go play for championships. So Ryan Day needs to make the right choices to put them in the best position, because I mean, he's honestly like I don't want to say he's on thin ice in terms of Ohio State, but I know that he is in terms of the fan base. Um, the way the quarterback battle was handled, the way that Ohio State's recruiting right now, fans are not happy about it. Seems like we can't get a trenches guy to save our life. We just lost Justin Scott, 5-star defensive tackle to Miami. There's Jordan Seaton, who's supposed to be announcing his commitment coming up here, I think on tomorrow, and he was just at Ohio State this past weekend, but it's not looking good in terms of at least what's being said out on the internet. I don't have any insider information on that, but Jordan Seaton's the 5-star like come in and start right away left tackle that Ohio State really needs. They need guys like that. You look back at like a Paris Johnson. If you can have a guy like that for 3 years and have him play tackle all 3 years, like Ohio State needs that because the offensive line just trying to piece it together how they have been is not going to work. And I know that Justin Fry was not left with the best situation in terms of like the guys that he had in his room and kind of where they were at with development. But at the same time, if you're gonna uh, if that's what you're left with, you still have to build on that, and you still have to bring in the guys that you need. And he's had 2 recruiting cycles now, and honestly, just hasn't really met the standards so far. So, I mean, I think the offensive line was pretty good this year. I don't think they were. I don't think they were the problem or the reason why Ohio State lost any games, um, or really why Ohio State struggled. I don't think that early in the year, yeah, but about halfway through the year, they kind of gelled and took off. So, um, I don't know, man. We'll see. As long as the product on the field is good, I guess you can kind of look past recruiting. But I just don't. I think that you're running in risky business if you're not bringing in the guys to replace the guys that you're losing. We lost DeJuan Jones and we lost Paris Johnson, who are both starters on in the NFL right now and both playing really well. So I don't know, man. We'll see. Like, there's not really too much going on with recruiting. There's obviously guys like Jordan Lyle, who's in the Ohio State class right now. There's a lot of smoke about him maybe flipping to Miami. Obviously, if you're an Ohio State fan, we're familiar with this because we had, like I just said, the D lineman Justin Scott flip his commitment from Ohio State to Miami, and then last year a running back switched or flipped his commitment from Ohio State to Miami. Mark Fletcher, who I mean, he's honestly looked really good at Miami too. So I don't know, man. We can't keep losing players to them. I know that we like to recruit that South Florida area, so there's going to be times where you end up losing a guy to them. It is what it is, because some of those kids want to stay home, and I mean, I can't blame them. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Like Ohio State's got 3 running backs in this class. If Jordan Lyle does decide to go to Miami, okay, just kind of take it on the chin and move on. Ohio State still has James Peoples and I forget the kid's name from Ohio. Williams Dixon, Sam Williams Dixon, that's his name. So I think they'll be all right in terms of that position, but we'll have to see how that plays out. I mean, there is uh, a couple guys that Ohio State's trying to flip or trying to add to the class too. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I'm like super knowledgeable on recruiting, but I do like to talk about some of the names that are out there right now. Like one is I think his name is Amaris Williams, and he's currently committed to Florida. But Ohio State was looking like they were in a good position for him, but it seems like now he's kind of looking at Auburn and Georgia. So we'll see how that plays out. I would love to get that kid in this class because I think that he could end up being a difference maker. Another guy, Carlin Jones, who's a defensive tackle type guy. Would love to see him in this class too. I think that he has a visit coming up maybe this weekend with Ohio State. And then I think he's supposed to visit Syracuse and USC too. So honestly, if I'm Ohio State and if I'm Larry Johnson and really Ryan Day, you need to get that kid on campus and shut this down. Get him locked into the class, and the goal really for me would be to have him cancel the other visits by the time he leaves Ohio State's campus. And I know a lot of people they're not really worried about the Syracuse, but the coach they hired over there recently is a problem. So they hired Fran Brown. That was Georgia's cornerback coach or defensive back coach, and he's an elite recruiter. I mean, if you look at the guys who Georgia's brought in over the past however long he's been there, look at the secondaries that they fielded. Fran Brown is an elite recruiter. He's an elite guy, and I mean, I don't want my recruits going there right now. Like I don't know. I think that he's kind of got like a Deion Sanders effect, but I think that he'll be able to sustain success, especially at a program like Syracuse. So, excuse me, I just had to sneeze. That was ridiculous. But anyway, I do want to get into some more Ohio State stuff here. I want to talk about what players do I think will play in the bowl game, and what players are probably going to just announce that they are going to head off to the NFL. So a couple guys I wanted to talk about, obviously starting from the top, Marvin Harrison Jr. I do not expect him to play in the bowl game. Obviously, I expect Marv to just let us know that he's going to head off to the draft, and then you know thank Ohio State, all that good stuff with a graphic on Twitter or whatever, Instagram. I don't expect him to play. He's going to be like a top 5 pick in the draft. So another guy who a lot of people have been talking about, Emeka possibly coming back. I don't think that Emeka is going to come back. I think that Emeka had too good of a season in 2022 to where he could still, as long as he looks good in the at the combine and all that good stuff on his pro day or whatever, I think that he's going to end up being a first round pick still. I think that he just has the talent and he's proven, and I think that more than anyone, Emeka has the kind of like, hey, my quarterback was not great, so the statistics were not there. Plus, he was injured for a lot of this year. I just don't see a guy like that coming back, especially not when, like I said, I think that he will still end up being a first round pick, especially once he gets out there and kind of shows his speed and all that good stuff. Because I mean, as much as Emeka, a lot of times he wouldn't look super fast out there on the field, but then there's other times when you're like, wow, okay, he is dynamic. So I think he'll put that all together and he'll go get drafted. Travion Henderson is the guy who I heard floated around as possibly coming back. I don't really see it though because of the position, right? Trey's had injury issues in the past, and I don't necessarily know if his draft stock is going to get higher. I mean, maybe it would if he came back and put together a crazy season, but I expect Trey to go. I expect him not to play either. And then, excuse me, guys. Anyway, and then you have the other guy I want to talk about too, just kind of where we're on this topic, Julian Fleming. He already entered the transfer portal, so he won't be playing. Basically, you're looking at every single skill position on Ohio State's offense is going to be someone who did not start this year. I expect in the bowl game something to look like Devin Brown at QB, maybe Dallin Hayden and Chip at running back, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, and maybe Jaden Ballard or Xavier Johnson at the wide receiver positions. And honestly, it's going to be fun to watch that. With the offensive line, I think maybe everyone will play except possibly Donovan Jackson. It all depends. If Donovan Jackson's planning on going to the NFL, he may just sit out the bowl game and not like risk injury or nothing. But if he's coming back, obviously he'll play. And I'm on the fence on whether I think that he's going to come back or not, honestly, because I think he's a guy who everyone expected to be drafted high. He ended up being, I think, first team All Big Ten. And I mean, he got a lot of hate because people expected him to be better. But realistically, the offensive line just didn't gel until later in the year. And he did start playing better as the year went on. So I could definitely see Donovan Jackson heading off. Matt Jones will probably play, even though this is probably his last year here. But I would imagine just to get tape out there, he'll probably play. And then the rest of the guys should play. No reason for Simmons or Fryer or Hensman not to play. All right, and then tight end, Cade Stover probably won't play, I would imagine. I mean, I don't know. We'll see if he does. He's kind of that guy, that type of person that would do something like that. But at the same time, I think that Cade's going to be a decent draft pick. I think he'll have a good draft projection, so he may end up not playing too. And honestly, I would be okay with that. Give me G. Scott and Jelani Thurman out there. Let me see what they can do. Even Joe Royer, every time I see that guy out there, he impresses me, but I don't know what his deal is, why he doesn't get playing time. And then looking at the defensive line is honestly kind of in the air. I don't really know. I don't know what out of the 4 guys. Actually, we'll go with 5. Out of the 5 guys, between JTT, Mike Hall, Tyleek Williams, Jack Sawyer, and Ty Hamilton, I don't know how many of those guys are going to be coming back for next year. I would imagine at least one or two of them will. Um, but I think that they're all going to get pretty good draft grades. So, I mean, if they're all draft graded within the first 3 rounds, they could all leave. It just depends. We'll see how that works out. And then I'm just kind of at the same point. I think that if they're deciding to stay, then they'll probably play. If they're deciding to leave and their draft grade is like first round or second round, then I would expect them to go. I could still see a guy like Tyleek Williams going in the first round, or even a guy like JTT going in the first round. A lot of people have given JTT a lot of shit because he doesn't get the sacks, the splash plays, and all that good stuff. But that doesn't change the fact that he is a freak athlete and he does the right thing on most plays. So I don't know. I just think a lot of that was schematic. How much pressure that our guys were able to get on the quarterback and whatnot. They were not really willing to just get after the passer and leave lanes open. So then looking at the linebackers, I think that Tommy and Steele probably will play. I think that's kind of a tough one. Like, I don't think either one of them have a draft grade high enough to the point where they're just going to leave and not play. But at the same time, I don't think that either one of them are going to be back next year. And we'll see about Cody Simon. I think that he was even thinking about heading to the draft or not coming back. We'll see. But I think Cody would be a starter next year and could make a name for himself if he were to stay. We'll see how that works out. But with the linebackers, I think that they'll all be available for the game at least. I'm hoping that if they are, then they'll at least rotate some guys because I feel like we need to see some of these young guys. Corners, I think that Denzel Burke probably will not play. He's probably headed to the draft. Probably first round grade for him. I think that he was just that good all year this year. And then Iggy was a sophomore, so he'll play, and you'll probably have Jermaine Matthews on the outside. Can't wait to watch that kid play, man. Every time he's on the field, it's electric. He looks like an NFL player. Like, and you guys know what I'm talking about. People look at like body type and all that good stuff. When you watch somebody move around on the field, you can tell if they move like an NFL player. And and I think Jermaine Matthews is one of those guys. I think Iggy is too. He moves like an NFL player also. And then the last position will be safety. I mean, obviously Sonny Styles should be playing. And then Josh Proctor. I don't know. I don't think that Josh Proctor is graded high enough where he won't want to get more film out there, but we'll see. That's kind of a guy who I'm up in the air about too. Um, but that was it, man. I think that we'll have a couple surprises that will play, a couple of surprises that won't, and we'll get to see a lot of young, talented guys. And I'm hoping that this offense, especially, comes out with like fire under it, with Devin Brown at QB, and then those wide receivers, man. Ennis and Tate got that shit to him, and that's that South Florida like that, like they're dogs. And I think that maybe this year we'll see the return of the yak, yards after catch, because that was one of the biggest problems we had last year. Is just guys were not getting enough separation to even get yards after the catch. But when you look at a guy like Carnell Tate, you can already see when he catches the ball, he's looking to make guys miss right away. He's not just trying to get down. And if you watch Brandon Ennis' high school tape and even the limited reps he got here, he's kind of the same way. He caught that ball against Purdue, and the receiver or the defensive back was in front of him. He made him miss, took it to the house. So I don't know, man. I'm excited for these young guys. I think that this team can get back on track, get some of that meanness and attitude back to it. So that's kind of it for my show today. Not a ton going on, but I do want to talk about this stuff as things continue to happen with the transfer portal. And then a little bit later, we'll dive more into the matchup against Missouri. I went back and watched the Missouri versus Georgia game. Missouri is a good football team. This is not going to be some walk in the park like a team that doesn't have athletes. Like, I think Missouri and Penn State would be a really good matchup. So just thinking about it from that perspective, I think that Missouri versus Ohio State is going to be a good one, and our guys are going to get put to the test, man. So these young guys have a game where they're not going to be playing against Youngstown State or nothing like that. They're going to be going up against another team that really wants to win, because that Missouri is going to be super excited about the opportunity to win a bowl game against one of the big time teams in the country. I mean, you look at where Ohio State finished. Obviously, it's not the bowl game we wanted, but Ohio State's 11-1 with a 6-point loss on the road to the number one team. Michigan's not the best team in the country, but 6-point loss to a playoff team. Michigan's definitely a worthy playoff team. So, anyway, we'll go ahead and move on from that. I'm gonna wrap the show up. I didn't even get to the main topic, and I am so sorry because I got so caught up in all this other stuff. We will talk on tomorrow's show about the playoff committee and if they got it right. Again, sorry for just rambling on, but I do have to go. Um, I just to answer the question, I do think the committee got it right, and I'll explain a little bit more. Like I said on my show tomorrow, we'll bring that back up. But thanks for watching. Hit the like button, all that good stuff. Come back for more content. Peace out. You guys have a good day.